I'm very excited to speak about today's book, by the way. I'm very, very excited. So, today's book is about Mastery by Robert Greene. So, Mastery by Robert Greene. Why did I enjoy this book? So, this book, um, it speaks about how to master oneself and how to master a specific field that you're attracted to. But this book, Robert Greene goes and uses very, very famous figures to explain their life story and how they used these specific strategies to succeed in their lives. First of all, a brief explanation of who Robert Greene is. He's an American author who writes about the human psychology, the human nature, and human struggle. Uh, he's not really a philosopher like Mustafa Mahmoud, but I really like his books. Why? Because again, he he really understands how humans think and how humans act. So, in the Book of Mastery, again, he discusses five main points about how to truly master oneself. And what helped me understand them even more, again, is because of the figures. And in a way, I remember these figures because of these skills, okay? Um, it just kind of like connects to them automatically. So, in the first section, Robert Greene says that you have to discover your calling in life. So by that he means that whatever you think that you're very good at, most likely that's what you have to pursue. In this case, he discusses how Leonardo da Vinci decided to fully pursue painting as a career, and it ended up being the best thing he's ever done. So, sorry. Growing up in Florence, Italy, art was a very dominant uh, thing at that time. So, Leonardo da Vinci, also from a young age, had extreme interest and uniqueness when it came to art. He loved uh, going on walks and looking at sightings, mountains, trees, rivers, whatever, and he would sit there for hours to just take in that view. And he used to actually steal paper from his dad's office to go paint on them, and he just fell in love with it. But he also had to go through many things to kind of get to where he wanted, because at that time a lot of artists were also coming up. So he actually became a polymath too. A polymath is a person who excels at more than one thing. I think he became interested in mathematics, science, stuff like that. I'm not really sure. I forgot that part. But yeah, Leonardo da Vinci's story in that section is incredibly amazing because I got to know more about it. In the second section of the book, Robert Greene says that you have to submit to a certain amount of time when it comes to apprenticeship. And in this section, he talks about Mr. Charles Darwin. So, Charles Darwin has this kind of negative look to him because, again, of his theory of evolution. But at the same time, his theory of evolution, I only agree with it when it comes to the plantation kingdom and the animal kingdom, but not the human, because the human one contradicts every Islamic thought and teaching, so I cannot really go with that. But Mr. Charles Darwin, he sucked at school. He was not the best mathematician or whatever. He was somewhat bad, even at sciences. So, and his dad also forced him to do medicine, and he was like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." So he dropped out, and he went for a Bachelor of Arts in the same university. After he graduated at like 22 years old, he was recommended by a doctor to go on a exploration cruise journey, whatever, for like 5 years. He recommended him. He recommended him because Charles Darwin had unique observational skills. He loved collecting shells and making observations on different animals. And his doctor was surprised by that. So he asked him to come with him to go on that cruise, and he came back a different man. He spent 5 years on that cruise, and he came back with many discoveries because on that cruise they stopped on many, many islands, and he ended up noticing how different animals, their environment kind of shapes how they look like in the long term. For example, mild desert or uh, wet rainforest, whatever it could. So the moral of the story is that you have to take a long time when it comes to understanding your field. It could take 5 to 7 years. In the third section, there is the story of Michael Faraday. So Michael Faraday, his section was about find your mentor. Find your mentor because you cannot really rely on yourself most of the time. A lot of people have walked the path before you and made great discoveries, so they can teach you a lot of things. But in Michael Faraday's case, it actually kind of backfires on him because he was a scientist who grew up maybe poor, if I remember correctly. So he couldn't attend schools and universities, so he had to rely a lot on books until he ended up meeting his mentor, who was also a scientist at the time, extremely famous. He was a chemist, I think. And over the years, Michael became better than his mentor in a way. So it kind of backfired, where his mentor tried to involve himself with Michael's theories most of the time. That he kept telling him, "Hey, you learned from me, so you owe me everything." So yeah, finding a mentor is extremely important in life. So I don't make this video long. He speaks about other figures like Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and his journey of how he became rebellious and wanted to create his own music. Extremely inspirational. And then you have Mr. Benjamin Franklin. That was an interesting story because it speaks about how you should have social intelligence in life. You cannot just walk cluelessly, if that if that's even a word. And yeah, also last figure in this book is Marcel Proust. He was a novelist, if I'm not mistaken, French novelist. This book is extremely amazing. I genuinely loved it because it felt like I'm reading a story while I'm reading the explanation. So it was a perfect balance in some sort. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book if you are trying to just become better and also to learn from other figures who had the same thing.